Hey guys, my name is Christine and welcome to my channel. Today here we're going to cover basically my homework assignment for one of my classes, which means that I have to explain my code for each question. I did 6 questions for this homework, 3 of them being HTML documents and 3 of them being PHP documents, and we're also going to use XAMPP, which is right here. It's basically an open source web server you can use to basically use SQL and the web server. So I have these two running right now. So hopefully the whole local host will work. And over here, I have the local host running. It has all my assignments here, and you could basically go here and you just type in localhost, and it'll bring up the web page with Apache plus Mariah, BD, PHP, and Perl. And there's also PHPMyAdmin you could access here as well, which has all your databases, SQL, status, and whatnot. You can import stuff there. And by typing in, after the dashboard, would be my homework. That's where my homework would be found. So typically, to get that to work, you would have to go to the htdocs in the XAMPP folder to get that, and you'd have to paste your homework assignment into this folder. That's basically what I did, and that's under the XAMPP files folder. Let me show you the XAMPP files folder real quick. Yep, right over here, and right there is htdocs, and you just paste all your documents right there. Okay, let me just get started. So for number 1, I did exercise 11.11 on page 390 of the textbook. And this code creates a web page with a simple user interface to reverse the order of tokens in a sentence. So what I did was basically, I did a shortcut to get your document to work. And what I did, we go to a new file. Sorry. Actually, I don't actually have to do that. I just comment this out real quick to get to doctype.html. Because I know there's definitely a shortcut to do this. Because sorry. You gotta just type in this exclamation point, and you press enter to get that, to get the doctype HTML and whatnot. It just makes it a bit easier instead of just typing it over and over again, in my opinion. Okay, hit save. And then this on line 12, I did an onload attribute after the body tag. It specifies the function to be executed when the page loads. And that's our onload function. And my script does I did a script my function, and it prompts the user to enter a sentence, and then splits the sentence into individual words using the split method. So that would be right over here, and it splits the sentence. And I did a for loop, and then the for loop would print each word in reverse order. The for variable equals so it's for variable I equals 0. I think that's a less than sign. Tokens.length, and it's I++. That's basically to reverse the order of your loop, of your sentences. And then document.write and the tokens. And then I did the h1 tag, which is right here. I made a tag to create a header that says reverse tokens, and the p tag creates a paragraph that says enter a line of text, which is right over here. And the reverse tokens gets the input from the text box, and the splits into the tokens using the split method, and the reverse, the order of the tokens using the reverse method. And finally, it joins the tokens back together and displays the reverse sentence in the p tag along with the ID output token, which is right over here. Oops, sorry. And now we're going to see the output of question 1. And I put it in this directory in the localhost just to make things a little bit easier for us. And it says enter a sentence. That's our output. Well, since today is Mother's Day, I'm going to do Happy Mother's Day. Exclamation point. And then that's our output for question 1. It would just print it backwards. It would be instead day, exclamation point, mother's happy. And it just reverses basically the order of the original sentence for question 1. Okay, let's do question 2. So question 2 was exercise 11.14 in our textbook, which is on page 391. And this code creates a web page with a user interface to count the frequency of letters with user entered text. So same thing, I basically started our header and my script. I created a search key function, which is called when the user clicks the submit button, which is on line 15, which is right here. And then it initializes the array of letters with all lowercase letters of the English alphabet. So I had to put all of the letters in an array just to initialize all the letters, basically. And then I iterated all the letters of the array, and it checks how many times it appears in the user input by using the index of method, which is right here. I used this for loop right over here. Basically did that. And the second for loop right here, it iterates how many times it appears in the user input, which is right over here. And if a letter was found, the function increments a counter variable occurrences by 1, and the function then presents the letter and the number of occurrences in the text area tag on line 61, which is actually right over here. Well, technically it's line 62, but you get what I mean. And that's right there. I then did this form tag right over here, and this thing here basically explains what I did throughout here. So the form tag creates a form where the user can input their text. So it's right over here. Enter several lines of text. I'm sorry, I kind of stammer when I'm on camera. And the label tag creates a label that says enter several lines of text. And this input tag here creates the box where the user can enter their text. The input tag with the type button creates the button that, when clicked, calls the search key function. And this H3 tag is the results. And the text area tag with rows of 20 and the columns of 50 creates a text area where the results of the letter frequency counts are displayed. And the ID attribute result is used to access this element in the JavaScript function. So right over here, which the attribute result, actually right over here. Yep. And now we're going to output the second question right now. Our localhost says here enter several lines of text. Gotta do my name is Christine. My favorite color is purple. And I just press the submit button here, and here's our results of occurrences of our letters. Like, for example, the letter A occurs 2 times, the letter C occurs 2 times, the letter E occurs 4 times, and so forth. Okay, and that's it for question number 2. Let's move on to question number 3. So question number 3 was exercise 11.22 on page 391 of our textbook. And it was basically HTML code that allows the user to enter the date of a text field and then formats it different ways. It's basically like it's basically entering like the date, and then it'll output various different formats of it. Okay, here's our head. I did date formats just to get a proper title for my code, and then I did a form right over here. And then this creates a label that tells the user to enter the date. Label 4 equals date, enter the date, just right over here. Okay, and creates a text input field to where the user can enter the date. And the ID attribute sets the element ID, and the name attribute sets the name of the input field, which is right over here, which is this line on line 18. And it creates a button that the user can click a format of the date entered in the input field. The onClick attribute calls the format date function when the button is clicked, which is on line 20. It's right over here. The button type, and then you guys set it to button onClick, and it's the format date, and that formats your date. And I did a break just to make things a bit neater with this document. And on line 23, well, technically 24, on line 24, I created an empty div with an ID of output, and that's where I formatted the date will be displayed. It was right here. This div output right here. And then I did a script type for line 26, and then for line 28, and I did a function that called format date that will format the date entered in the input field, which is actually right over here, the function format date. And this input gets the value of the input field with the ID of date and assigns it to the variable called input date. And this line, on line 33, creates a new object using the value of input date and assigns it to the value called date. And this initializes an empty string called output.html. Not .html, but output HTML. That's basically what it does. And from lines 39 to lines 43, there's just ways of the dates can be formatted and shown, like the full date, the local date, the ISO date, and the UTC date. And this guy on line 45 displays the format date. Basically just displays our output. So we're going to run this guy real quick for question number 3, I believe. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to zoom this in a bit. It's a little tiny. So I did date formats. That's our H2 tag, I think. No, H1. Sorry. And we enter the date. I'll enter my birthday, for example. So I'm born September 7th, 1996. I know, I'm old. And it does the full date. The full date was on a Saturday, of course. The locale date, and the ISO date and UTC date. That's the format for question number 3. Okay, so question 4 is our first PHP file, and it's exercise 19.7 on page 707 of our textbook. And I wrote, this PHP script creates an array of states named on its string of state names. It's gonna basically read how many times, like, states or whatnot. I think it does. Let me just read what I said. Okay, and I did this PHP I'm so sorry. Shoot. So for line 13, that's what you use to make a PHP document, is that little sign and the question mark PHP. And line 15 creates a string variable of names of states and sets it to the state names. So I use the following states in the textbook. I use Mississippi, Alabama, Massachusetts, and Kansas. And it creates an empty array variable called states array. See, our states array is empty at the moment. And now, lines 22 and 23 checks whether the string states contains a word that ends in XAS. Example, Texas. And it's using a regular expression pattern. If it does, the matching word is added to the states array index at 0. And lines 27 and 28 basically does the same thing, but except it's gonna check for a word that begins with K or K and ends with S. And text Kansas would be the example of that. And it's using a regular expression pattern. If it doesn't, the matching word is added to the states array of an index of 1. Lines 32 and 33. Checks whether the string states contains a word that begins with M and ends with S. Example, Massachusetts or Mississippi. And using a regular extension pattern, if it does, the matching word is added to the states array indexed by 2. To lines 37 and 38, checks whether the states containing a word that ends with A, i.e. Alabama, using a regular expression pattern. If it does, matching the word added to the states array is indexed by 3. And lines 42 and 43, checks whether the string states contains a word that begins with M, i.e. Mississippi or Massachusetts, and using a regular expression pattern, and if it does, the matching word is added to the states array by 4. And this last line here basically prints the contents of that said page. So we're going to load that page, PHP. That's basically what this line of code is doing. And it's in an array, and it's counting how many times our letters appear in each state. Okay. Question number 5. Let's move on. So question number 5 is exercise 19.6 in our textbook. No, not 19.6, 19.8, my bad. And it's on page 707, and this is a PHP script that validates the user's email input. So this one, it was probably the easiest out of all of them. Honestly, it wasn't too difficult, in my opinion, to figure out. So that's our HTML document. So I did an H2 tag of our email input validator, and I did a form of the method and the action, and our input is going to be our email. So basically the user would have to enter their email address. It would have to be set to a specific way that they would have to do it. And this PHP file, right here, in this line of code, checks if the email field is set to the $post super global array, meaning that the form has been submitting and the email address has been entered. And that's right over here. And this validates the email address format. Okay? It has to be at a gmail.com. It has to be at a certain email format, if that makes any sense. I'll show you right now. Question number 5, PHP. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay, this is our email input validator. So I'm obviously not going to put my own email on here. I'm just going to do an example email. Gabriel. Obviously going to butcher this guy's name, this random guy's name. But it's just to get the... Actually, I'm going to do someone else's name. Christina Aguilera at gmail.com. It's just for example purposes, even if I didn't spell it right. So it says Christina Aguilera is a valid email address because it has that @ symbol and it has the .com symbol. It's basically what I meant. So let's say if it wasn't a right output, let's say Ruby C at sorry, why did it say valid? I'm trying to see an example of an invalid email address. Let me just see. See, and it says here to input your invalid email address, because this email right here is invalid because it doesn't have the @ address or the .com address. That's why it's invalid for question number 5. Okay, that's that with that question. Now our final question is another PHP document, and it's on exercise 19.9, which is page 707 of the textbook. And it's a basic PHP form that allows users to enter a URL and its description. That's misspelled, that's my bad. Allows the user. Yep. Okay, and basically we just did the same thing as our other questions. We did a form, we did a label, and whatnot, a button to submit it, enter the URL, enter the description, and it submits. It should go to our server as well. So from lines 26 to lines 29, it sets the server to localhost. It goes to our localhost, so it should run properly. For question 20, no, not question 20, to quote for homework 6. My bad. I'm very camera shy. Okay, and this creates a new SQL object that represents the context of our database, which is right here on line 32. And from lines 35 and 36, it checks if it's connected, this if statement, and this guy as well. Checks if the form has been submitted, and this gets the URL and description from the form. 43 and 44, the URL and the URL description. And this prepares a SQL statement to be inserted in the data into a database. Read up here on line 44. And this executes the SQL statements from lines 50 to lines 55, I believe. Yeah. Everything else here just outputs everything into a table. Okay, let's see if this code works. Oops, sorry. Question 6. Enter the URL and enter the description. www.youtube.com. Sorry, didn't spell that right. Description. Create awesome videos. Should submit. Oop. Let me just see something. Detail.com. That's our book's website. It's a cool site. I'm actually not sure why this output 6 isn't working. I know a lot of the other students were having issues with this question. A lot of my other classmates were having problems with this question, so I'm not 100% sure. I'll probably check back on that question later. But you get the idea. So, that's basically it for my video. So if anyone has any questions or comments or concerns, please let me know. Please let me know. Sorry. This is my first video, so I just want to yeah. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, let me know. Please leave a like or write a comment in the description. I'm sorry. Read a comment in the subscription and have a good day. Thank you.